Okay, rulers, settle down. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get singles for all your Force of Will and other trading card games, as well as these amazing patrons. Thank you for your support. Class is in session. Hey there, rulers. Welcome back after a long week of Force of Will. We know you have those assignments, so you've come to the right place. It's Office Hours, your favorite ever live Force of Will podcast featuring myself, Jeremy Franklin, DMO73, and I'm joined, as always, by the wonderful Paul Reisman, the beautiful Mike Grants,
Yellow,
and the economical Dan Roland of CCG Prime over here joining us tonight.
What a word.
Economical.
I don't know anything.
Well, we're still glad to have you here. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. As always, if you're here, we hope you subscribe and get interested in the channel that way. If you're new, welcome. We're glad to have you be a part of it. If you feel like you enjoy what you're doing here and want to support us, consider clicking that join button right down below. This past week, we unlocked the new iMole emote, which you've already seen some people spamming in the chat. We also are now looking to try to get the Lumia emote, which we need 19 more members to join. Even if you don't join as a member, we still appreciate you being here, and consider clicking that link in the Discord for the Discord down below to get plugged in to our community so we can get in touch with you more often. And then also, if you're still looking for product for Epic of the Dragon Lord, you can actually still get boxes from Odyssey Games. There is a link in the description to get those boxes from there as well. We'll have links for the next set, Magic Stone War 0, probably either later this week during Fow Wednesday or next week, so be on the lookout for that. That being said, Dan, CCG Prime, you have been sponsoring giveaways for the past couple months, and so we're glad to have you be here with us. Specifically, we want to talk about FoWconomics 101. We're going to be talking about this whole idea of looking at the market of Fow pricing, both singles and sealed product, and kind of just trying to learn a little bit about it. So we get into that. Does it say iMole instead of Lumia on the screen? I got to fix that. But while I fix that, Dan, why don't you give us a little bit of background about, what brought CCG Prime together, your background, and kind of what brought you to Force of Will in that market
You're going to kill me with this, aren't you?
Go for it.
That's a whole hour by itself. I've been nerding out on card games since '95 with Magic, obviously. Then Magic kind of got boring, so I dropped out, didn't play card games for a couple of years, and then these little paper thin half decks showed up at my local LGS. I think it was a Crimson Girl one, and the red one I think was Bloody Snow White, and played it. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then the product started coming out and messed around with it, and then I think Twilight Wanderer I grabbed on and ran with it, and I've been going ever since. So, and then I don't know why I wanted two play sets of everything, and then my play group kind of dried up, so I'm like, I only need one. So I started selling the second play set off in October of 2019, and it just took off. So I'm like, hey, I'll just buy more stuff and sell that. And before I knew it, I've got literally a ton of stuff.
Yeah. Yes. As someone, yes, I've seen a lot of the stuff, and like we've seen is your generosity with the giveaways. We know that you have quite a bit. So I guess the first question is, obviously as card gamers, I think all of us, I'm not quite sure about Mike. I don't really know about Mike's history, but I know that Paul and I come from a background of Yu-Gi-Oh! So we are very used to the idea of being a backpack vendor and the idea of having a binder, having prices in mind, going to events and like picking up cards, trying to make profit, selling cards, stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
So from the perspective of like for Force of Will, moving to being more of in like a full scale like seller, what would you say is like have been some of the biggest takeaways that you've experienced specifically about Force of Will that maybe hasn't been true for other games that you've played or participated in?
Well, one, it's not like other games because as we all know, up until at least the end of Raya Cluster, it was really a player's game because you're like, oh, tier 1 deck, here's $20, let me build it.
Sure.
If you didn't care about full arts and all that stuff. Where most other you look at Yu-Gi-Oh. I mean, I don't know about Pokemon, but like, a tier 1 Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh deck, $500 for a tier 0 deck is cheap.
I'm pretty sure it's safe for Pokemon, but yeah.
Yeah, again, I never really played Pokemon seriously, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, the secondary market there is like ridiculous. If something's a $50 card and that's like the normal version, a foil or an extended art or alternate art or promo is gonna like easily quadruple, or even in force. I think a promo version might be twice as much, if that. So yeah, it's a lot more financially accessible for players. But on the other hand, if you're trying to deal in it, I found volume and selection is the key there. Like I'm in the TCG player group on Facebook, and everybody's like, yeah, we don't list cards for under a quarter. It's not worth our time. So you look at the Magic, the Yu-Gi-Oh, and the Pokemon vendors, and they don't list anything that's worth less than a quarter. But me, I literally have every common, uncommon, crap rare, pardon my language. And if it's a dime, it's a dime. Because what I find is people when they show up to buy something, they're like, I normally have orders like 50 to 100 cards and like nothing's over a quarter, but I'm making money. And those people, when they can't afford or do want something a little higher end, they'll come back to me too. So having the selection really helps you. But you can't really do this backpack vendor. You're like, I have 15,000 cards in my little trunk I'm carrying. So
yeah, for sure. First of all, I would say it's been surprising, probably within the past year. And Mike, maybe you can share your thoughts on this too, as having gone to GPs and stuff and acquired like participation promos, Top Cut promos. Like within the past year, especially if we've had this resurgence of older players coming back or newer players who are like, oh, this stuff is actually really cool. I've seen the value of like promos or store or like higher end stuff actually starting to like move more consistently. Not necessarily for the same amount that it maybe was when it was first brought out, but like I still see things move quickly. I mean, I talked to Gerardo, who played in the webcam tournaments from Canada, and I think within a week of both of those tournaments, like he had already sold all of his entry promos, like that quick. Which is surprising because there was definitely an era in Forcible's history where it was like, I don't care that that's very shiny. I'm not buying it.
It all depends on your audience, really.
Right.
Yeah, for sake of example, when I went to the GP in Minnesota, I already knew for a fact that I was getting the promos, but I already knew I didn't want them because I already had the places of everything from Decisive Battle. I already disliked the set enough to make a video where I wrote haikus about them. But the big thing is that I'm just like, these cards pretty much have no value to me. The value that they have to me at this moment is essentially whatever is more than the entry fee I paid.
Sure.
And I doubled my money selling them, which was really nice because it basically turned into the plane ticket that got me there. And also I kind of, backed out of there with, a bunch of other prizes and, a plane trip to Japan.
Yeah, paid invite to Japan is not too bad.
Yeah, it seems decent. But the thing is, I ended up profiting really hard off of that. For some reason, those Uber Ascended rulers, which I still haven't sold yet, still go for like $80, $90 on TCG Player for some reason right now. Not on TCG Player. I'm like
the originals?
No, the Uber versions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So coming out with 3 of those is also like, I don't know, it just feels like the players market is like when you win a tournament, because the prizing has been, hey, look at that, yeah,
Uber Priscia.
Because the prizing has been so good and has been so generally high value, hey, you're more likely to sell at like maybe not the biggest profit you can, just to be like, I want to move this stuff because it's a specialty commodity product. You don't know how it's going to move really. You don't know your target audience until you can find one. And when you find a target audience, you're more willing to jump to their price level than trying to build your own price level.
Yeah.
And I think with that, people looking to buy them and turn them into a collection, or people looking to flip them even, can get higher margins for what they want, and they can kind of name their price and kind of move it that way.
Yeah.
So it's very much like a market made by sellers of the sellers. And I think that's where we get a lot of the kind of weird middle ground stuff, like the price points on most of these cards. It's not super high. Like most of the Uber DBV stuff goes for less than the ones that were added to packs because they're more common at this point. But at the same time, it's like still worth something.
Josh Mostart, it's interesting thinking about promos in terms of Force of Will. There's a million promos that are fairly common, and then there's like Tribal Grim and Chibi Wonder Twins. Yeah, I mean, obviously we have Judge promos or Wanderer League promos. Obviously carry a little bit more weight. There's also just promos that kind of, I don't want to say got short printed, but like were really hard to distribute. There's also been histories of players getting burned on trying to take advantage of the fact that certain promos were going to be low. Cough, cough. Jeremy got the first set of pants on full art Cheshire Cats that no one else got, and then suddenly the company sent them all out to players anyway. We're not gonna cry about that at all.
You keep Jeremy.
Yeah, it's a funny. I'll share it. So like, for way back in Forcible's history, Pantsless Cheshire Cats, there was the claim that they were a misprint, and so the company offered a program where if you had a Pantsless Cheshire Cat, you could send it in specifically to YY Card World, which is how I first learned about them way back in the day, and they would send you a pants-on full art Cheshire Cat for just 1-for-1, right? And so I knew everyone was going to want the pantsless Cheshire Cats. I don't like pantsless Cheshire Cats. I like those Cheshire Cats. And so I sent them in. I found out later that I was literally the only person in the entire United States who took advantage of the exchange program. So I felt very special because I had the only pants-on full art Cheshire Cats. I felt very special about them. ARG offered me a name your price moment to buy the playset from me. I did not take it from them. I absolutely should have, because 6 months later in everyone's quest clear envelopes, there were pants-on Cheshire Cats for everyone. What have I done?
Jeremy.
So I do want to say, coming to get back to kind of what we're talking about, Force of Will is a singles market. Like in terms of FoWconomics, it doesn't behave like you would expect other card game economies to play around, especially like if you're trying to either make money or acquire cards. It's very easy, I think, to, especially if you come from another card game, to imagine what a secondary market looks like based in Force of Will, based on those experiences of like Yu-Gi-Oh, which is the most volatile singles market of all time, to Magic,
not volatile,
which is
it's what they call when Konami decides to screw you.
Yeah, exactly. But also like Magic just has a high ceiling. Like Magic is a market that has an insanely high ceiling in terms of singles value. But Force of Will, I like the way you described it, Mike, of it being a seller of sellers. It is like there's a lot of people who are willing to do things like Dan is talking about, of like 50 to 100 cards at 10 cents a piece. Like you can pick stuff up that you want. Or like if you're trying to pick up higher end stuff, maybe they'll cut you a deal of like, you can find movers faster at like 80% of market value for a card that you picked up for 40% market value. You're still doubling. Like you can find those pretty quick, as opposed to like, especially in the Yu-Gi-Oh market, it's like, if it's not, I bought this for 0%, I sold it for 800%, that I'm not going to waste my time with you. Like that's a very like fierce market. What was the thing we used to always say, Paul? We used to go ones, twos, pointing at a binder of like ones and twos, pointing at it, sometimes threes. Like you point at a binder, and you go, this card's worth $15. I'm gonna offer you 2. Like that kind of like super competitive era. Force of Will just doesn't have that. And I think a good example of that is actually Paul's history of the budget player, in terms of picking up singles and cards to fill out his collection. So Paul, I'm going to kind of give you the stage here to kind of share what your insight has been as a buyer for personal use of what it's been like to be in this market.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm in this really interesting place because I have one of the best friends in the world, and he just gives me his extra cards. So I'm able to just sort of like
That's cute.
the full set eventually. But I still have to buy off the singles market, right? And so when I do, I kind of when a set first comes out, one of the things as a budget player realizes is that everything is super, super inflated because the product is very hot and in demand.
No, it's not. That's fair pricing.
I don't know. Maybe I'm not right. I don't know, but like I always see prices sort of decrease because the meta shakes out, and people get a sense of like, oh, what cards are good, what cards are bad, and so then like things start to sort of settle a little bit. Like rulers right now are still like what 80 a pop right
Somewhere
now?
between like 50 to 80 based on the ruler.
Yeah, that's got to go down before I'm gonna buy because rulers should not pay that much money. They haven't paid that much money since like Rhea Cluster.
That's a big anomaly for sure. I think the last in the box rulers that ever hit that price were IU and Welser. In terms of like staying at that value for a consistent amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think many other rulers have hit that cost.
Well, it comes down to rarity. I mean, the biggest driver in force for sustained value is rarity. Like IU still anywhere between a $40 and $60 ruler. Obviously the EDL with one per box, and 6 rulers, especially with the, I buy a case and I'm like, oh, I'm going to get 6 rulers. Well, no, yeah, you are, but you're going to get 2 Mikages because I must open like 30 boxes EDL and I think I got like 6 Mikages and 1 Ragnarok. I'm like, what? So it's misdistribution on top of 1 per box. I don't think the EDL rulers are going to drop much, especially if they're good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like that situation really makes it difficult for budget players to want to get into the game. Like they buy a box and like, okay, this is the ruler I get, and God forbid you get Mikage. Because spoilers, Mikage is the worst. He's terrible. If you didn't know.
He's not good.
No, he's the best. I still have 5 of them for sale.
Let's play a worse Rezard. And like, if you don't know that as a new player and you start getting stomped with your Mikage and that's your first ruler, you're like, okay, well, I guess I don't want to play this game anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
As a budget player, though, I'm just looking at, all of these different cards that I'm gonna want to play eventually. Like I'm looking at Kikis, I'm looking at Arlies, and I'm comparing. Right? Do I really want to play a red list with Arlie? Play some sort of Celesta build, and sometimes budget players will just like single into like one niche or another, and they'll go that way and go back in the future when things are cheaper. And so that's where like the selection thing, Dan, is like super, super, super helpful for folks like me, especially folks who are going back to like the early sets and picking up that stuff.
Yeah, the number of times where I have had Paul message me and been like, I'm gonna do a Wanderer order. What should I look at?
Conqueror order, you mean?
And I'm like, yeah, Conqueror order. And like, you just do these kinds of things. And he's just like, yeah, okay. Like, just orders it all. I don't think there's ever been a time where I've told Paul to pick up some stuff for Wanderer or Conqueror. And he's just been like, oh, yeah, that's out of my price range. Like, selection is, it's definitely a game where the singles market, I think, is easier to play with if you do, like, burst buys, as opposed to just like picking up a single card here and there. It's definitely, especially with all the sellers we have. Like I can talk about even building for the cube, right? Like I ordered, I think 60 cards for the cube. Now, mind you, I was buying them at like max rarity because I love shiny cards and I want my cube to be maximum rarity. But at the same time, like I've still compared them to the card prices of like what it would have been to be not. And I think if I had wanted to buy those 60 cards from throughout Force of Will's set history, including shipping, it would have been like $28, right? And so I think, you look to now, and I think our overall single prices of New Frontiers have probably stabilized at a higher level than we're used to, but I think that also speaks to kind of the growth of Force of Will as a game. that we're seeing a little bit of a bottom end for standard grow a little bit more. And I guess, Dan, if that's been your impression or if that hasn't been your impression, feel free to correct
I think
me.
the biggest, I mean, you can I can sell you MOA boxes all day for $20.
Oh yeah, MOA is the biggest like gamble of your life. If you want to play the lottery of Forcible, buy a box of MOA because you might get a dual stone worth $60.
That depends. If you have no MOA, you can pretty much get a play set out of $1, so it might be worth the $20. But my point is under the original company, like you can still go find Crimson Moon for like $50-$60 a box, which is very reasonable for a 7-year-old set. Once iSpy took over and moved to the print to order model, so I think our secondary market overall it's going to be higher, and I don't think it'll probably never get as low as the older stuff.
Sure.
Well, obviously Castle and Castle Time Spinning Witch,
Vingolf 3.
I'm trying to think.
Wins on the Spoon, maybe.
No, I actually don't agree with Vingolf 3. I mean, if you want a sealed one, yes, but the
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like Vingolf 3 sealed is like
right. I'm talking strictly singles market. I don't. If you could probably go on TCG Player right now and get a play set of Vingolf 3 for $100 to $150. I mean, even the rulers are only like $5-$6 each.
Yeah.
So, actually,
wow.
Lumia, yeah, Lumia is probably one of the higher end cards. Or Lumia, the green little red.
Little Red's just one of the best cards out of that set.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying the whole set's
probably,
pretty.
yeah.
Well, the problem with Abdul is, and that's the other issue. Going back to Mike's point on promos, like you look at like this is the old Artemis bow, God's bow from the GPs. It's the same art as the SKL one, just a little fancier. Where you get the newer promos and they're Ubers.
Right.
Because I'll say one thing. When the promos are just like the regular cards, like I don't think I've moved any of these ones, the promo Excaliburs and
how much you selling them for?
Levitines. I don't remember. I just put them up.
But
the Ubers move.
Put them at 10s. They'll move.
I could always lower my prices.
Yeah.
But my point is, these promos are so much different,
right,
than the old ones.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're not swamped with them. Like you mentioned Abdul, like he was when Vin 3 was short printed, he was going for like $10-$15 out of Vin 3. Then they released the promo version and just flooded everywhere. Everybody got promo Abduls, and the original dropped to like $5 within like a couple months.
Yeah.
So
Collectible Farm, Angerboda.
Cool.
So what is up with singles like Angerboda, Giant of the Setting Sun, Full Art? Search the singles market to no avail. Is it a heavily played card, or are there investors sitting? The biggest part is that comes from a set called Decisive Battle. It comes from a set called Decisive Battle of Valhalla. It was the last set of the Valhalla block. That was a set that was released during the company changeover, and suffered immensely from the community fallout of the company changeover. So it was very under pre-ordered, and it was very underprinted due to that low pre-order number.
Yes.
And then there you go. You just massively short printed.
Well, nobody knew iSpy's print policy was going to be print to order.
Plus
we were so used to print it to oblivion.
Right.
That people are, because I was like that too. I'm like, oh, I'll just buy some boxes after a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden everybody's out. You're like, what?
Yeah. And then I sold Dan 2 boxes of DBV at the Fow Festival for like $160 a piece, and I was like, yes, value.
I used store credit for my 2 boxes, and I remember paying $150. And then getting the store credit on that, so I actually got it for normal price technically.
Well, yeah.
Collectible Farm,
sometimes you just stumble into a deal.
Yeah, Collectible Farm. Forcible is not really necessarily at a point where you have investors sitting on stock, to the point of like that investors sitting on stock is going to drive up prices immensely. A lot of sealed product. I mean, this is a good kind of switch to the conversation of sealed products. Like sealed product in Forcible is a fun time. You're most always going to usually get some kind of good deal on it, or like get your value off of it. And there are a couple of sets that have consistently held their value at sealed. particularly things like Castle of Heaven and the Two Towers. This was the first set with OG Cheshire Cat. It also had some of the like more popular Grim Cluster rulers, so like that's kind of always held value for a better reason. Things like obviously DBV, because it was short printed to oblivion. Sealed Vingolf 3s still carry value because again, Time Spinning Witch is also a very prominent set to have that kind of hold things. So like there are sets that just because of print run or like how much was opened, there's gonna be some scarcity in terms of them being able to hold their value for sealed. But it's not necessarily that it's because people are stockpiling it. It's just kind of because of the nature of how much of it was printed.
But you could now.
But you could start now, I suppose, if you wanted. So. Yeah.
Well, right, because I got the
got 5 boxes of DBV, and you can't bring yourself to crack them. Rustin, you madman!
I will take them.
Do us all a favor and crack them.
Well, here's a great comparison. Like, because I've done the research. My article on Fow Library for Grim will eventually come out. But like right now, Crimson Moon's Fairy Tale, the average box price is about $80, and I've checked TCG Player, Amazon, and eBay, but Castle and the Two Towers is like $250.
Yeah,
but
Tat, if you can find Tat for less than 100, you should buy it.
but the odd thing about that, and it says both were released on the same day.
It's true.
So but that's more of a, people open a lot more Castle than they did Crimson, because
people like Cheshire Cat for some reason.
Well, and
Abdul.
Yeah, Abdul was in the set, right?
Alice, Bahamut,
Crimson Girl,
Crimson Girl. Like the rulers in set 2 were significantly better than the rulers in set 1 outside of Grim.
Hell, Crimson Girl's still going for like 15 to 20.
Yeah, no, like the rulers in set 2 significantly were better than the rulers in set 1.
Dan, can you answer a question? Why is Red Riding Hood expensive? Like the ruler from the first set.
Crimson Girl. Oh no, or Wolf Girl. Are you talking about Wolf Girl?
Effect, I assume.
Yeah. She's expensive for some reason.
Are you talking about Wolf Girl or Crimson Girl?
Wolf Girl.
Wolf Girl. Okay.
Like the red cone.
Crimson Girl. Right.
From Crimson Moon, yeah. I have no idea why this card's expensive.
you know, as I don't know if it's rare or it was just because like I just acquired like somebody's force inventory, and it was only Grim through Twilight, and I must have gotten, as far as Grim Cluster, at least like half a dozen of every ruler except her. I got one of her. And we're talking like 30. Like I just spent this last weekend inventorying like 20,000 cards, and like 15,000 was Grim, and I had one little red ruler.
That's so weird.
I've got like 6 Shaharazards, like I don't know how many, like 3 Abduls. I mean, it's just like all these rulers and then one of her.
So Dan, I don't know, as much as as much as I don't necessarily want to invite you to share what might lead to more competition on the marketplace, if there was someone who wanted to try to get their hands into trying to do kind of what you're doing, in your mind, what do you think those steps would be? Like what's the thing to think about, when you're just like, okay, cool, I want to switch from a buyer to a seller? What are some things that you think are important to know?
You need inventory. I mean, sure. It's and I don't know how many of the people watching are part of the Forceville marketplace. Like people put up collections all the time, and like nobody's buying collections for the very reasons we're talking about here. Is, if I need cards, I'll just go spend $5 and get the 100 cards I need. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get what you need. So when people are trying to sell collections for especially what their value is, somebody's like, I have 1,000 cards. Their TCG player lists them median value, let's say $300. They're going to want $300 plus, shipping and all this other stuff. And that's just unrealistic, because in this game, guy plays Magic for 10 years, walks in the shop, hey, I want to sell these. Shop's like, oh my God, yes. But with Force, you're like, I'll just go online and order them all. So I mean, I guess acquisition of inventory can be kind of hectic though too, because people want top value for stuff that realistically nobody's going to buy when they can just like Paul said, I'll slowly acquire it when the prices drop. So
has it been worth it for you, do you think?
oh God, yes. But I mean, you've seen my setup. I've literally
I also helped you get some of your setup, so yes, I know.
Yes, yeah, right.
There's a reason why there's a reason why I have a giant comic book in the back of my room.
I mean, I literally have like 60,000 singles listed online and like another 20,000 bulk sitting there, and I just closed the deal this morning for another 40,000. So you can slow, right? Hell, I had two smaller collections show up today, so I'm like, that's where I got all those thunders from that Mike was drooling over earlier.
It's a red card. I don't drool over that.
So I mean, yes, you can get into it, but you really, like the whole adage, you got to spend money to make money.
Sure.
I just happened to be in a spot, had a nice fat tax return, and oops, my way into it.
So then coming from the perspective of, again, what we've seen, and this can be a conversation kind of for everybody about your thoughts on this, is especially for newer people who are coming into the game, does there need to be a different approach potentially to obtaining product as new sets roll out? What do we think is like the most optimum way to obtain product, or like a game plan for obtaining product to either make the most money back or have to like maximize investment to pay out, I guess?
Something that I definitely think is a big deal, and this is going to be something that kind of ties into how iSpy is doing this, print to order type thing. You're going to see less, obviously everybody's going to get what they need because they're going to order what they need. They're going to see the investment possible. However, much to possibly Dan's dismay if I say this, I think that Force probably needs more, the Force needs more Dans. It's kind of the point at this point. You need more people that are going to be willing to, drop big investments onto like just a whole boatload of product, open like 30 boxes, make a singles market online. Because the more you do that, the more you just kind of get like as Dan, as you mentioned, you do like these huge orders and it's profitable for you, but it's also helping grow the community because there's more people constantly coming in, looking for product, looking for just like a bunch of singles to get shipped out to them. If people can't, if especially people that aren't currently in the game won't know how to get the product if it's people just, buying it for themselves. I think we need more like high name, big investment.
Yeah, but most people aren't going to do that because like Jeremy pointed out with Yu-Gi-Oh, it's like, I want to buy it for $1 and sell it for 100. It's profit. So my mentality was as far as forces, it's about volume, know, because I started selling pretty much to have a self-sufficient hobby. The fact that I'm making more than I needed to is like, oh, cool. So I've just been rolling back into it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, these binders aren't cheap, man. I needed like 50 of them to put my whole collection in. So they're like $25 a pop.
Binders are expensive. I do want to speak to Toby. Say, but then do you mean to say I have to be of the mindset of how I'm here? I ain't here. Be of that mindset now. I'm not here to enjoy what a fun card game should be, and I have to have the mindset of how can I make value. That doesn't sound fun. No, I what I meant to say is, should we, with what we've seen of Forceful now, with singles, the way the singles market has kind of shifted, or the way the singles market kind of operates, is there an optimum way to look at obtaining product for my own purposes of using it? And like, does that need to shift because of what we're seeing in the singles market? In the sense of like, is it more efficient to have the marketplace of, I want to buy products purely from the perspective of I want to buy product for me to use? Is it better, do we think now, to approach that from a perspective of boxes are where you need to be focusing your attention, or is it go for the singles era, or is it a mix of both? I that's kind of what I'm talking about, Toby. Not that you're trying to like make your value in terms of like turning it around, but like, is there a way to kind of optimize your dollar for your own purposes of being able to play the game with what we're seeing in like the way the singles market and the sealed market works?
Well, I can kind of attest to this a little bit because I'm sort of like a middle ground in terms of getting product and doing things like that. Because I'm not, obviously, Paul, as you mentioned, you're normally going to pick up like, some extra, like maybe a box, some extra from Jeremy, and then fill out the rest of the singles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
a little bit like that. I honestly just get stuff from Jeremy, and then I buy the singles that I'm missing.
Perfect.
I also open a lot of product for the channel, so that helps.
Yeah, Jeremy's a certified dealer.
Yep.
Cardboard crack. He's like, I saw the exchange one. Jeremy shows up, and Paul's like, give me. I don't know.
Y'all got any more of them kikis?
Okay,
but
Mr.
no,
Chappelle.
so it's kind of like I think of that side of the spectrum, and I think of like Jeremy and Dan who open like a boatload of products and kind of do stuff like that. I'm in the middle ground section where normally it's myself, Joey, and Scott, all from the Deepwood team. We each invest in 2 boxes apiece out of a case, and then from there, each of us opens those 2, figures out who has what play sets, see how much we can get to like 2 play sets apiece, and then kind of build different decks based out of that. And from there, we just kind of supplement with singles from our local game store, having like 1 or 2 boxes up for us to just crack packs on for tournaments. And then the rest of it is just like, I'll just go online and order singles. And that's, just kind of like anything that we need to fill out. I'll be like, hey, Scott, do you have this? I have 4 of these. How many of these do you have right now? He'll be like, I have 3 of these. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to order 1 of that. So we each have like 2 play sets to kind of divvy up between ourselves.
Yeah, for sure.
Which kind of ends up, it's really, really effective to go into forced product right now with people. And I think that's why a lot of people who are like single players in their areas that can't really get a group going end up not investing as hard and getting burned on it. Like the game is very much meant to be collected and played by a group.
Sure,
and
absolutely. I would agree with that. I'm going to hit a couple of comments here in the chat. So Collectible Farm.
Yeah.
Question: what if you don't want to make money, you just want your hobby to fund itself? Would buying 1 case and keeping only booster boxes work, do you think? I think that actually, if you're looking for like the idea of breaking even, if your idea of breaking even is having a playset and recouping some of the cost, buying a case is actually probably your best bet. On average, the amount of product that I purchase per set, with what I'm typically sent by the company, what I buy, and then what my contract provides, is on average about a case plus a pre-release kit. That's about usually what I open. From that, I always have about 1.75 playsets, and at least a base rarity playset every single time, plus stuff to sell on top of it. So like if you're looking to just play and kind of recouping your costs, a case should 99% of the time get you a base rare playset plus plenty of foils to move on the marketplace to make some of your cost back. So that is like the simplest kind of like quick turnaround. I don't think there's ever a point in Force of Will right now where a case will ever pay for itself in terms of like full recoupment. But that's where we get into the era of like how much value do you put on fun in terms of like having a playset for yourself, which we've talked about in the past.
What's fun?
Well, it's also a case should get you a playset because they're normally 120 cards or less minus Ray Cluster.
Sure.
And at least speaking from a wholesale perspective, I know like Svetlana and Games of Geek, they will sell. I know for EDL they sold, and Odyssey too. They were selling boxes shipped for less than some wholesalers charge for Magic and Pokemon boxes with the same 36 pack payout, or 36 pack content. So it's even cheaper as a player to buy sealed, because a case, if you get a deal, should run you $480 to $500. So if that's your fun money, plus the other benefit of Force is they don't drown you in all these excessive products. I mean, you look at that.
4
I mean,
products
like,
per year. 4 products per year.
Big
oh,
five.
shit.
And starter
No,
decks.
we've
And
only
Ghost of the Shell.
we've only had 1 year without a 5th product.
Oh, that's
That
true.
was
Some
New
kind
Valhalla.
of some kind of like Vin Golfy style thing.
Well, Vin 1, 2, 3, SDR 6, and then Ghost in the Shell.
And then Ghost in the Shell. Yep.
So we'll see if we get one for this cluster too.
That'd be interesting.
But right, but you look at Pokemon, like Shining Fates is coming out. The only way to get those cards is through the tins or the trainer boxes.
I can't think of the last time I haven't looked up and heard about a new Pokemon set being released. Like, a new one comes out, and I'm immediately like, yeah, but the next set's in like 2 weeks, isn't it? Like,
well, they have their 4 standard booster sets, regular sets a year, but stuff like Shining, was a hidden Fate, Shining Fate, Champion's Path. The cards
adjective
in that
noun,
set,
yeah.
But
adjective plural noun. Sorry.
But the distributors are allocating up like 90%. So if your store ordered 100 of the training kits, they're only going to get 10. So that product is exclusive. It's harder to get, and you're going to be paying like the Champion's Path trainer boxes. They retailed for 50. They were selling for 80 to 120 online.
Yep.
So force, even if your whole goal is I'm just going to buy a casing and a playset and not try to make my money back, you're still actually pretty cheap compared to these other games.
Ty Mikes, your local Fow community no longer exists since no stores near me will support it. What do I do? There's 2 steps that I would put. One is there is a wonderful video that we put out on the channel 2 weeks ago called How to Start Playing Wholesale in 2021. You need to copy that and save it to your bookmarks and then send it to people. That's step 1, because that's going to get people kind of starting.
I love that Jerry is just showing his own channel at this point.
Yeah, right. And the second, I mean, that's why we built it, was to like help people build community.
Why would he do such a thing?
The second is, just, it's kind of like what Matt is saying, like get plugged into an online community, like the Ruler School Discord, the Forcible Global group, the official Facebook,
OLS.
LG OLS stuff. Get plugged into that, and you will find that there are people who are probably closer to you than you think. You really only need 2 people to start building a community, and it doesn't matter if your store won't support it, as long as your store lets you play it. And the easiest thing is, we've had a conversation of this with the Teacher Slash before, is if you want to build a Forcible community when it's safe to do so, because COVID, the biggest thing is to
COVID's a lie.
I'm gonna kick you from this podcast.
I'm
I know you are, but like, Ruler School does not support that position. Okay, let me make sure.
Dan's ready to storm the Capitol now. Anyway,
so
Otherworld Dreams.
Yeah, Otherworld Dreams, Dan. So the one thing is to say of like, go in and just play when it's safe to do so. Just like pick a day, probably a consistent day, and just like play with a single person. Build a couple decks that are like easy to play against each other, and just play the game with a person. You will be surprised how often people will come up to you and say, hey, what's that game? And you'll be able to at least give them a try for a demo. 99% of stores that I talk to, when they see that there are players and the players are talking to the store saying, hey, we're interested in this product, they will buy the product because they know that you will sell it to you. So that's kind of what I would recommend, is kind of get plugged in that way. Next comment, we're getting a lot of comments here, and I'm really enjoying all these people who are not members getting involved in the chat. This is always great.
You should give Jeremy money.
Yeah, I can show my site. I've got that community support kit for just shipping.
Oh yeah, also Dan does, CCG Prime does have like a community Kickstarter kit, which is like you just pay shipping and you get promos and other kinds of cool stuff to be able to get started. So check that out for sure. That's an excellent resource too.
That's on the Facebook page though, not the actual website.
If you want to put a link to that in the chat right now, Dan, go ahead.
Okay. I'll stick it up.
So Josh, how do you all expect the explosion of Pokemon as of late will affect Fow? It won't. Forcible and Pokemon have never interacted with each other. Like they just don't mess with each other's player bases. I have never. I think maybe one player in my history of playing Forcible has ever gone from Fow to play Pokemon, and they didn't stay in Pokemon for very long. It was just kind of the game that they decided to go to a tournament to. That it's for me, it's been more like that. Players are more likely to play Pokemon and Force of Will than be mutually exclusive of Pokemon or Force of Will. They just don't. The player bases just don't interact with each other very much. Skull Reaper, no starter decks for this cluster. No, there are not, which is one of the big reason why the community gave a ton of feedback to the company, myself included, through my direct lines of saying, you need to make it back to 2 rulers per box, because 2 rulers per box makes it so a pair of friends can buy a box together, making it much more affordable to be able to get into this game. I also raised up that we need to bring starter decks back, but you can still pick up Alice Origins starter decks, which technically are legal for New Frontiers play through the end of this year. Those are still on Amazon too, and I know that Dan has some as well. Over at
not the Prisia, but I have the rest.
But the rest, they're very easy to pick up, and they are still competitively viable. So
she's not the best waifu in this cluster.
And then trying to think of.
There's the link for the community kit thing. So
perfect. Did you send it to me on Facebook, or did you send it to me in the chat?
Oh, I sent it in the chat. I can send it to you on Facebook too.
No, I just didn't see it. I just didn't see it pop up in the chat here on YouTube, so it's all good.
I have a final question for the group if we have time.
We definitely have time. Take it up.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this because Jeremy brought me back to my Yu-Gi-Oh days, and they're not all bad. I will say that, but they were bad enough. One of the things I enjoyed, though, was there was this Gold Series box that they would release every once in a while, and I know they still do. And it's kind of like a legacy set. So it's like a hollowed up legacy set. And I'm wondering if we were to design our own sort of legacy set that was sort of sold as like a secondary or even tertiary product, like a one-time shot. What would that look like, and what would you need it to be for it to be successful?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. Like, what would a one-shot turn?
Nothing from DBV.
Are you asking, or would that be just like Wander legal, or like cards throughout the history, and it's only like Wander legal, or would it?
It could be Wanderer legal. It could be an entire game. It could be like an injection that those card pools go back into the New Frontiers. I'm not really worried about the legality. I'm just like, what would you need from, you get like legacy product is coming. This is what you need in order for it to not only be something you would want to buy, but also something you could sell and be happy about it.
Honestly,
well, selling it has to make money.
Vingolf 3 would be like probably the closest comparison we could see to like a legacy style set, because they all reference rulers that during the time that Vingolf 3 wasn't standard, those rulers rotated out, including stuff like Sylvia, stuff like Valentina, just anything like that. So if we had something that was specifically made obviously a tertiary product, not something meant to be like a big, like, oh, this is gonna break New Frontiers, it's gonna go right into there, it's gonna Kaguya. Instead of that, you get something where all of the cards are supporting archetypes from older rulers or even older clusters. So you get maybe like one card that interacts with Old Grim, one card that interacts with Old Snow White, one card that interacts with maybe not Old Reflector Frame, we won't talk about that, but you just get like all these cards that are just like one-shot fan favorite support cards, maybe even 2 of them a piece, like one that references the ruler by name and one references the ruler by its mechanics or something like adjacent to what the ruler does. So you factor all those things together.
Or supports their gimmick that was, because like Glorious from LEL, the inheritance mechanic was actually neat, but I don't think she ever got enough real support to make it playable.
I think to me, a product like that would have to, it would be I personally would make it as a bigger thing, bigger than like a Vingolf. And in the vein of like the whole gimmick of Vingolf 3 was ruler all-stars, because it was like all of the favorite rulers now resonators. I would do a ruler all-stars where the box has a very like an immediate, these are some of the most notable and rememberable and fun to play rulers from throughout Fow's history. And here's a smattering of support suites for them, along with generic support suites that we've seen from their colors throughout the years. So like I'm talking things like Grimm, Sherry 1, Alice in Wonderland, Abdul. Like I'm talking about like actual rulers to say like these were some of the standout experiences of Force of Will's time. Here is a small smattering of their support package, and then here's this big old block of colored support that can be used in a lot of different ways to give you the most like deck building essentially. So when I think of what you're talking about, Paul, to me it would be like if I've never played Force of Will in my life and I'm never going to buy Force of Will ever again in my life, this would be the product that I would want to like. This would be a product that I would want to buy,
like a standalone deck building game, like
essentially that. Yes, that would be the way I would design it.
I want werewolf support. You know, there's only five werewolves. Or cognate support.
It's so true.
Cognate support. That's the real play.
There are literally only 4 cognates that go with Kane from CMF. I'm just saying, so many things were like tried and abandoned, you know, and it's like, or not supported, and it's like a set like you're talking about, like, you know, just a couple extra cards.
Well, like to me, I think to me, I actually wouldn't do like, contradicting you, but I wouldn't do that. Like I wouldn't make new cognates. Like for me, that set would cut the chaff of these like half fleshed out rulers. Like they weren't enough for us to support them when they first were released. They're not enough of a memorable experience to be a quintessential Fow experience. They don't go in the box. So like Glorious, I think, is actually a good example of what could go into the box, because Inheritance was flushed as hell. It just wasn't super great. Fun experience, wasn't competitively viable, but in a sealed environment like that would be a fun experience to have, right? So like to me, that Glorious would definitely be a ruler, and the Inheritance mechanic would definitely be something that falls into it. The Force mechanic, I think, is also one that I think would fall into that box, right? Because Force was very fleshed out and very fun. I enjoyed Force, but it wasn't good, right? Like Cognates,
Dragon Power Counters.
Dragon Power Counters. I don't even think it would be the Millium, the Dragon Millium. I think that it would be White Millium for the Force stuff. But like that to me,
fair enough.
That to me would be what that product would be. Like we're talking less about in my mind, we're talking less about a supplemental, hey, you've been playing New Frontiers, here's a best of everything box. It's a, hey, you've never played Force of Will before, you just want to know what it's like, you're never going to play it again. Ta-da! Here's a product. Like a one-time kind of...
So what you're saying is like a self-contained intro set like Vengoff 2 is supposed to be, but actually not suck.
And way bigger.
Bigger.
Let's just aim for not sucking.
That's true. That's very
not sucking is a good start.
It's a good start.
I mean, the best thing about Vin 2 is for $20 you get a set of dual stones.
It's true.
Which, if you look on the marketplace, they average about 50 cents to 75 cents each. You're actually saving money. I think the biggest thing for Force's future, they need to support Wanderer and the other alternate formats like Magic does, just because that, I think, you know, Paul points out, if somebody sees the game like, oh, hey, that looks fun, until they come out with this Uber product Jeremy's talking about, the entry level is that $10, you know, Grim Cluster deck. And if we can, you know, I'm not talking about, hey, we're going to have Wanderer GPs and it's going to be an alternate format for Worlds, but just something as simple as either keeping the ban list updated or passing it off to like the EU guys, or even supporting Conquer. I know Mike would love that, but I think once they can do that or pass off the responsibility to somebody to maintain a ban list or some kind of support, I mean, it's weird because they're still making Wander League promos. So it's like they're kind of doing it, but they're not. But I think that's a big step to not only helping the game long term, but also, well, like you were saying, let's say I buy a case and I'm sitting on these cards. Well, right now, once those cards rotate to Wander, they're kind of like, once they're New Frontiers. But if it's supported format, those cards, secondary market will get better at everything. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
For sure.
Sorry.
With that, we're coming up on the end of our time, and it wouldn't be a CCG Prime involved video without some kind of giveaway.
What? We got some.
So Dan, what are we giving away today?
Were rabbits.
We're giving away how many? What are we giving away? How many prizes
We'll
am I
do
drawing?
And after last week, I hate to say this, but I kind of got limited to the U.S.
U.S. only?
No.
Okay.
Well, it cost me like it cost me more.
He's allowed to do what he wants to do. It's his giveaway.
He's saying he doesn't want to drive to France with a U-Haul to deliver his product to you.
You take a boat.
How do I put it? It cost me more to mail that set of 3 playmats to Canada than a box of Crimson Moon would cost right now. So, I like giving stuff away, but I can't really. I'm already losing money. I can't lose more money. So,
yeah, for sure. So how many
Well-
prizes am I giving away tonight?
Were Rabbit Warriors. We'll do play sets of them.
Okay. How many play sets of Were Rabbit Warriors we doing?
I don't know how many we've got watching right now.
We have 24 people watching right now.
I don't know. Let's give away 3 sets. I'm
3 play sets. So, let me think of a good question. Here's one. If there is a ruler from Force of Will's history that you would include in the sealed Force of Will experience package, what ruler would it be? So I'm going to give you 2 minutes in the chat to put your answers, and I'm going to write your names down, and we're going to draw 3 names. So
Kaiguya 2-0.
That's not in the chat, Dan.
Well, I'm not eligible to win, so I'm just going to say it.
Yeah, you are. You could win your own cards.
Yes, I'll save money on shipping. Really? Like I don't have enough of them? I tell you, the first event I'd run in real life, I'm just going to give everybody like 12 promos.
I'm going.
Matt, Stealth Kaguya is actively the ruler that I play in Conqueror format.
She's like stupid good.
Yeah, she actually is insane. Like
Pale Savior combo.
Chant standbys and stealth guards are broken when you can only set them for 1.
They're great.
Especially Grim Cluster ones that don't have a stone requirement.
None of them have a stone. Oh yeah, that don't have a darkness stone requirement. Yeah, no.
Well, yeah. TMS started the stone requirement.
I think so.
Yeah, because you needed prison,
Lunar Lake,
prison
Flame Trap.
executioner. Yep. Flame Trap was BFA. Come on.
Oh,
Pupper.
oh, hello, little friend. Oh. Oh.
Okay. Here we go. 3 winners.
Baby.
Our winners today are Jesse Juckle is our first place person. Our second one is Matt Seymour from Canada. So Dan, you can just mail it to me, and I'll take care of it for Matt. So Matt, you get some Were Rabbit Warriors. Enjoy. And then our third one is our third winner is, I gotta pronounce this right, Joshua Mostart. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So those are our three winners for tonight. So what I need you guys to do is I want you to email your address to this email address here, and we'll get your address and get those stuff mailed out to you thanks to CCG Prime. So thank you very much, Dan.
Mine's bigger than yours, Paul.
And on that note, I do want to thank everybody
talking about
for.
my dog.
I understand. I do want to thank everybody for being
All
here.
right.
I think you want to thank
Sure.
CCG Prime for being part of this conversation. I think that there's a lot to learn and a lot to kind of be mindful of. But overall, I think as a whole, FOW is worth the money, regardless of how you do it. I mean, there are optimal ways to spend your dollar, but I think, and hopefully this information was helpful for you to maybe think about how to do that. But all in all, super glad that you were here. If you liked what we did tonight, you want to consider supporting the channel and you aren't already, consider clicking that join button. It's right below there. It is the easiest way to support us financially. It's essentially like a Twitch subscription, and it goes to help the channel, get us new equipment and all kinds of other cool stuff, and gets you all kinds of cool perks and everything else. Also, be sure to check out the Discord for the Ruler School server down below. Please join us there. We are talking there all the time, and we have looking for group channels and all kinds of cool stuff. So check that out. But until next time, this has been myself, Demo73, and I have been joined by Paul and his puppy, Mike and his new camera, and
Focus.
and Dan and his million binders. So until next
There's
time,
only like 50.
have a good night. Class dismissed.
Bye, everyone.